My apologies to Bobby Boris Pickett and his Halloween classic song from the 60s when he had Dracula ask, whatever happened to my Transylvania twist? I've been thinking about whatever happened to Industrial Internet of Things. Hi, this is Gary on Manufacturing. And this podcast is sponsored as it has for a long time now by my friends at Inductive Automation. Discover a whole new view with Ignition 8.1 by Inductive Automation. It's packed with features for the modern control system like unlimited licensing, high-powered tags, and a mobile-first flexible design environment for all devices. Ignition 8.1 supports enterprises of any size. See all Ignition has to offer at inductiveautomation.com. And I've recently written about their latest, the .16 release, and they have 17 coming in on their blog at inductiveautomation.com. Talk a little bit about what could be coming in 17. And yes, Ignition does do Internet of Things. But I was thinking about this several years ago, maybe half a dozen years ago now. The IT companies all of a sudden started thinking about IoT, Industrial Internet of Things, and Internet of Things in general. And it had to do with, I'm not really sure actually, but it started with Dell, went to Hewlett Packard Enterprise, and then Hitachi Vantara, major IT companies, and they were looking at groups. And so Dell put together a gateway based on its PC technology and all kinds of add-on stuff. And that lasted for a while, but the whole group is gone and dispersed in many different ways. And I was asking the question at the time, like 5 years ago or so, are you ever going to sell enough boxes to make Michael happy? And evidently the answer was no. HPE put together a nice little lab, and they had a number of partners, among which National Instruments was one, and they used Aruba, which is part of HPE, for wireless communications and so on. And I wrote 2 or 3 times about the Texmark refinery down in Houston. They put together a system that was way cool. But things got really quiet. They moved the VP of that over to a broader role within the organization. And now I hear nothing from them about this at all, other than IoT from Aruba, the, like I said, the Wi-Fi wireless communications group within HPE, and the compute platforms and a lot of the stuff that they have. That's way cool, but it's not really emphasizing this anymore. They usually call it edge to cloud. Hitachi Vantara, I went to one of their conferences, and they were doing a few things that was kind of interesting, and it has gotten very quiet. People have come and gone and come again and so on. And we'll see a little bit later if anything's coming out of that. Meanwhile, you know, the industrial internet phrase came from GE Digital, and GE Digital was quiet for a long time, and they've recently had a flurry of press releases as they've updated most of their Prophecy Suite and other parts of their software, which is quite interesting. But they really don't have any emphasis on IoT anymore. Rockwell has gotten, and Siemens both are doing a lot of software work. Emerson recently had a couple of press releases come out where the little phrase where they always say company, comma, and a leader in blah, 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 or the leader in blah, 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 depending on, I don't know, hubris or whatever. But Emerson recently said, you know, Emerson, a software / technology / company, and so on. And so now software is going everywhere, but software isn't IoT either. So I wonder whatever happened to IoT. So why did we have IoT in the first place? And in industrial applications, it was data. And remember when they used to say data is the new oil, and that that phrase hung on for. In fact, I just heard it recently. Could be to be honest, which kind of surprised me. And I thought that was rather interesting. But we've known for a long time. I first talked to my old friend Benson Hoagland from Opto22 somewhere around 1999 or 2000. It was talking about the necessity of getting actual real-time manufacturing data around the control system and not through the control system. If you could get it around the control system, then you didn't have to go to the control engineer and screw around with PLC programming and that sort of stuff, which is not good and or wise often, and so on. And so I've been watching this space a long time. And actually, I had a job when I was titled the kid in engineering at a manufacturing company. And my job was to keep track and organize and disseminate and update and everything, all of the engineering data about the products and coordinate with costing, because knowing your costs is extremely important if you want to know if you're making money or not. And so the data's been around, and anybody putting in an SAP or other ERP system knew that they had to get real-time data from manufacturing. And unfortunately, all of the initial SAP implementations couldn't really get fast, real, trustworthy data from manufacturing. So the IoT, with the whole idea of connecting sensors and devices and smart devices from manufacturing or production, and getting it into some sort of database, into another database, and so that the appropriate people could get the appropriate data, that became very important, and IoT was the way to do that. So at any rate, so IoT, some people even started companies and called it an IoT company or whatever. I haven't seen a press release very much lately. A sensor company just sent me a press release talking about their IoT thing. And yes, sensors are integral to Internet of Things, but it's more than that and less than that at the same time. So whatever happened to it, hey, it was there long before the phrase IoT. It'll be there long after the phrase IoT. But basically, we have data flow. We need some way to tap into all the smart devices in production and manufacturing and supply chain, and from the beginning of the supplier to the customer. Oftentimes, we need all that data so that we can improve production, make better decisions, be more efficient and effective in our manufacturing. It's going to be there. It just may not always be called IoT. Where are things going? Lately, the things that are really coming on the most, we have data orchestration, and some former Dell people and some other people are at a company called Zedida, Zedeta, doing some really interesting work in data orchestration. Recently, Rockwell, among others, has invested some money in them. And another company is a startup called HiByte, BYTE. HiByte is doing data ops, and data ops is a very interesting thing, technology. And to be honest, I expect both of those companies to find an adequate buyer before too awful long, because that's the way it goes in technology. But that's a couple of very interesting new directions that are going on. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube instead of listening to it on Overcast or whatever else you might use to listen to it, I'm at a new coffee shop that just opened. I moved from Sydney, Ohio, where I had invested in a coffee shop, and this is a new place on Randall Road in Carpentersville, if you know anything about the Chicago suburb area. But anyway, I'm very happy to find a direct trade coffee place that I can hang out and do some work too. So at any rate, Gary Mitchell, whatever happened to IoT? Thanks for listening. Remember, this podcast is brought to you with support from Inductive Automation. Discover a whole new view with Ignition 8.1 by Inductive Automation. It's packed with features for the modern control system, like unlimited licensing, high-powered tags, and a mobile-first flexible design environment for all devices. Ignition 8.1 supports enterprises of any size. see all Ignition has to offer at inductiveautomation.com. Also go to inductiveautomation.com for information about their community conference coming up soon. Details to be announced. It'll be held in Folsom, California, like usual, and more information is coming. And one further, not really a supporter, but I am promoting the ARC Advisory Group Industry Forum coming up in June. Check out arcweb.com for more information about the Industry Forum in Orlando, usually held in February about Super Bowl time, postponed due to COVID, and definitely going on in June in Orlando. Anyway, maybe I'll see you there. If you're going, ping me and we can have a coffee or something. Thanks for listening and have a good day. This is Gary Mitchell.